Warning. Listening to this podcast may cause individuals to think more clearly and question the motives of PodConf. This content is only reserved for mature audiences who believe that humans have agency and the power to make decisions for themselves. Listener discretion is advised. On this episode of the Bugle Weekly, Dick Greaser hosts veteran journalist and Bitcoin expert, Party Bent. The two discuss the importance of combating misinformation, only receiving your information from vetted sources, as well as the importance of journalism school. Credentials matter in a world dominated by foreign intelligence agencies, trying to subvert democracy and spread hateful lies.
You can make America great again by reading the Bugle. Take back your mind by outsourcing the thinking to them instead of the spooks.
What if I told you that the world you know is a lie? PodConf is a system. That system is our enemy. When you are inside, what do you see? You see businessmen, influencers, podcasters, journalists, and conference organizers. The very minds of the people you are trying to save. But until we do, those people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inurged, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. That is why you Bugle listener are the resistance. By engaging in the value for value ecosystem with us, you are helping defeat the PodConf industrial complex.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
PodConf is changing the narrative around Bitcoin to promote number go up. This week, PodConf launched a page to showcase individuals who have submitted their proof of compliance and have been approved to earn compliance token. So far, there are only 6 individuals in the world who have been able to redeem compliance token, making it one of the most exclusive status symbols in the world. Also, PodConf issues a public statement disavowing Bull Bitcoin's non-compliance. Remember, compliance is defiance, and we must seek NGU at all costs.
This week, the Bugle launched the complete clothing line in a partnership with Orange Label. With this collection, both parties hope to redefine the conversation around compliance as well as the conversation around defiance. The brand is a revolutionary new look on Bitcoin fashion, and definitely not a rip-off of other brands that also ripped off other brands. Make sure to comply by visiting the website orangelabel.co. Once again, that is orangelabel.co to get your hands on the exclusive complete clothing line. Please do not boost the show because it is good that the Bugle is outsourcing some of the ad reads to India.
All right, we're recording. Welcome to the show, Party Bent. Nice to meet you.
Dick, it's great to be here, sir.
So can you tell a little bit, or tell the audience a little bit about your journalistic credentials and kind of your background of what brings you here today?
Yeah, I got my undergraduate degree in journalism at Duke University. Graduated in 2013. Spent a lot of my time while in Durham partying, though. Learned a lot from the lacrosse team that was there before I got there. I looked at what they did and took it to heart and decided I needed to party hard while at Duke University. And just so happened to get my degree in journalism. Didn't try that hard, but apparently a journalist, being able to walk out of college with a degree in journalism opens up a lot of doors for you. You get a lot of access. I've been invited to quite a few parties just because I had the credentials. It's been fun. I sort of stumbled into this, Dick, and not going to complain.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is good advice for young people going to college, is like when I read your articles online, I've never had the question of what was Party's GPA when he was in college at journalist school. Like the certificate, essentially gives you the green light to perform this very important work of journalism. And it's just those those letters saying bachelor's degree in journalism after your name, which are the important credentials, I think, it's really important for our audience to know. Because, like, there's this pandemic happening in the Bitcoin community where there's all these people creating podcasts and they didn't go to journalist school. It's really a problem.
Yeah, it's really disrespectful to all of us that went through the process of actually getting the degree, too. I mean, the number one thing you learn while you're going to class, I didn't go to many classes, but the ones that I do, I think they beat this into you. They repeat it at the beginning of every class. So I heard it at least 5 times. The classes that I did attend is you are the new arbiters of truth. The journalists are. It's a very important role that you need to uphold, which is you tell the public what the truth is, and you alone. You need this degree, the certification, to tell people the truth. And anybody who isn't doing that, they didn't say this explicitly in class, but it is implied that anybody that does not have this degree, that did not go through the hard work of going to class and being fed information from some purple-head teacher at the front of the class, does not have the right nor the privilege to tell people what the truth is in regards to anything going on in the world, whether it's economics, war, politics, health, culture. The journalists are the arbiters.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what we have in the world of journalism today is it's kind of like the Bitcoin blockchain without spam filters, like we're seeing right now. So like all these non-accredited individuals publishing stuff online on publications like Ordinals Magazine, they're just spamming the internet. And like we have a very important job to do here, which is to protect democracy. Like the Washington Post, their tagline is "Democracy dies in darkness," and like we're essentially getting eclipsed by the non-credentialed spammers. And I think the solution, like Nikki Haley was onto something when she talked about KYCing the internet, which essentially is a spam filter being put on, the world of journalism in the same way that Luke Dash Jr. is trying to do with knots. And I think that's really great.
I think it's great too, and I think Nikki walked so people like Michael Saylor could run. I think what he announced last week at the Bitcoin for Corporation conference in Vegas is going to be pivotal to seeing this end goal that Nikki had come to life. Like the DID protocol, attaching your ID to the Bitcoin network, is the first step at being able to create an authentication layer on the internet so that us hardworking journalists that went to school, partied a little hard, studied a little less hard, got our degrees, and are now the arbiters of truth, with this structure, being able to put this information in an op return, we'll be able to attach not only our names, our email addresses, our social security numbers, our home addresses, but I think there's also going to be a field for your college major that you can put in there too. And if it is on Bitcoin, if it was verified in this op return data, it is the truth. And so we finally have a way in which Bitcoin can help us KYC the internet and make sure that journalists are the only ones spreading the information that people need to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's really exciting. I know that like a bunch of other people like Impervious and Microsoft have attempted to do digital ID verification via Bitcoin, and it gets announced oftentimes at a conference, and then you never hear about it again. So it would be good for Saylor to finally come through and do this where others have failed in the past. I mean, do you know how this will work, and what like how could somebody get signed up to use what's he calling it, Orange Protocol?
Yeah, Orange. I think just Orange. It's a drop protocol, just Orange. I think he talked to one of the founders of Facebook who gave him that advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Do you know?
I think you go into the MicroStrategy portal, the Orange portal. You put in your information. Maybe you take a picture of your license, your passport, holding it up with the selfie, and then for the degree part, you'll also have to hold up your degree. It's a party bent undergraduate bachelor's degree in journalism. And then some AI software separates all the data, puts it into different fields that they can fed into this op return. You send a batch transactions with a bunch of information forms aggregated together. You put it in a transaction. It confirms on the blockchain. You officially have your ID attached to that public address, and then you can then go authenticate that you are who you are and you had the credentials that you say you do, using Bitcoin as a way to access goods and services in the digital world.
That's exciting. I think, the move to non-state identity systems is really important right now because we've seen the state be incredibly non-compliant recently. It's pretty apparent, that they think that they can give us rules that they expect us to comply with, but they don't have to comply, as was seen by the samurai arrests, where they were arrested for laundering money for the CIA, which should be a legal activity in a democracy. So I think getting away from, the U.S. passport into like a private solution, like this is the free market that Bitcoiners want, right? Is Michael Saylor KYCing Bitcoin on the protocol level. Like it's a very like Rothbardian type, step forward, I would say.
Yeah, no, I'm just happy to see competition, because I think WorldCoin, what Sam Altman and the WorldCoin team are trying to do is incredible. And they've been out there by themselves, scanning eyeballs, getting orbs into people's hands, airdropping WorldCoin into people's wallets, which I think is an incredibly virtuous attempt to get people onto this digital ID system. I think it's very apparent that we need this. We need to KYC the internet. We need to do it the right way. And I've always really respected what WorldCoin has done over the last few years. However, like it not being attached to the Bitcoin blockchain has really irked me a little bit. Like if money does, going back to the Rothbardian sense, if money does converge on one monetary good, and that monetary good is running on a network that's going to be the most secure network protected by cyber hornets, like you'd want the digital ID apparatus to be built on that blockchain. And I've always respected what WorldCoin did. But now that they have competition coming from Orange on Bitcoin, it's just incredible to see it. It almost felt a little dirty liking what the WorldCoin guys were doing, knowing that they were doing it on a shitcoin. Now it's on Bitcoin. I couldn't be more excited, and I actually have a lot of hope for the future that we're going to be able to get out there and make sure that you are who you say you are on the internet, that you're tracked while you're operating on the internet, and that we can get these disgusting individuals who think that they have the right to get out there and start podcasts and start their own blogs and start their own newsletters and give people information that they are not credentialed to be giving out in the first place. So this is a big step in the right direction to solve a pretty massive problem, which is the fact that people are getting information from individuals who should not be disseminating information in the first place. They do not have the degree. They should not be able to do this, and thank God for Saylor.
I think there's like, a handful of exceptions where it's okay for non-credentialed people to be saying things on the internet, but it's pretty apparent that lacking the KYC and credentials creates a lot of really dangerous misinformation. And like one of the perfect examples of this are individuals like Stony Bitson, who continuously get banned off of Twitter for spreading misinformation, and they continue to come back. They're like cockroaches that never die, despite, Twitter's, involvement with the FBI and the CIA to crack down on misinformation and negativity in general. They're unable to filter him. So, it's apparent that like there needs to be more robustness to the system, because you could have individuals that are actually dangerous to democracy, unlike Stoney, who, you know, doesn't have a very big following. Like, I know Bitcoiners know who he is, but, you know, imagine like if Alex Jones had permission to get back online prior to when they recently let him on. Like, he could have shifted the 2020 election. So why, like, imagine if he was posting under a NIM, how much power he could have had in disinforming the public.
It's quite frightening. It's quite frightening. I mean, the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Department of Justice, FinCEN, all these really integral institutions for facilitating a society that lives by the law and like, is just and operates smoothly. Like, they need help. They need help. Yeah, I think they're a bit proud. They have some pride as institutions. They've been around for decades, centuries, or over a century, some of them. And, you know, sometimes it's hard for them to ask for help. The free market needed to provide them with some help. And thank God we have Orange to really push this forward, because they were too proud to ask for help. And I think Saylor MicroStrategy saw the ability to help and announced it last week, and now we can finally go and implement this into the internet so that we can stop all these malcontents from spinning up NIMs and speaking freely on the internet. There's a lot of problems out there. I mean, we just had COVID. We're in a lot of debt, and there's a lot of misinformation around whether that debt is good or bad for America. I mean, it's very clear that it's good. Debt is only money that we owe ourselves. MMT has proven to be right. And there are people trying to erode the sanctity of this truth via disinformation. And we need to create incentive structures and technology that allows us to really sift the signal from the noise and make sure that we're elevating the signal of people that are credentialed and getting the correct information out there from the misinformation, which is typically laundered by anonymous accounts on the internet that many people know are bad, but like you mentioned, they're like cockroaches. You can stamp them out one day, but they'll reemerge another day with some other NIM. And I think a digital ID connected to the Bitcoin blockchain really solves this. It's a silver bullet. I think people are apprehensive to ever use the term silver bullet in terms of providing solutions for any problem, let alone this very serious problem. But I think we have a silver bullet here.
Yeah, you know, if you were going to go back to like 2016, I think instead of saying silver bullet, you'd probably say Litecoin bullet. But like since then, I think we've all realized that shitcoin, or how much of a shitcoin Litecoin is. So I think going back to silver bullet makes more sense, just for general terminology.
Yeah, I think we go back to silver bullet, but I think we also have to pay respect to Charlie Lee. I mean, he made an incredible amount of money, and he was honest about it. If you're gonna, I know people like to browbeat shitcoiners in the Bitcoin space, but if you follow Charlie Lee, he was at least an ethical shitcoiner, where he told everybody when he was buying and selling Litecoin. Typically, it would buy at the direct bottom, and then he would send a tweet, say, "I'm buying Bitcoin," or excuse me, "I'm buying more Litecoin. I started this, but I'm even going to buy more. By the way, I'm the CTO of Coinbase. We're going to launch Litecoin, so I just bought some before we officially launch it on the exchange I'm the CTO of." And then on the back end of the cycle, after you have the incredible wave of liquidity coming to the market, right at the tippy top, using potentially, maybe he had some information at Coinbase, says, "Hey, I'm going to dump all my Litecoin now. Don't need it anymore. Become a billionaire." But like, he bought low, sold high, but most importantly, he let everybody know. And that's what you want. That's what I learned back in Durham while studying journalism, is the people that are open and transparent about their financial affairs, especially if they have perverse incentives. As long as they're transparent, it's okay. They can go get their billions and go on their way.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty apparent that Charlie was in the right. I mean, he hasn't received a Wells notice yet, so I mean, he must have been doing things correctly and compliantly.
Yeah, I mean, Litecoin, for all the shit it gets, I mean, it was pretty innovative. Bitcoin has 21 million coins. It's got 10-minute block times. It's got it had at the time when Litecoin launched a 1 megabyte block space limit. And you do some math there. 21 million, multiply that by 4. Okay, you get 84 million coins, and then block speed block production pace is 10 minutes on average. Let's cut that down to 25% of that. Let's make it 2.5 minutes, or 2 minutes even. Let's cut it by 80%. Let's go to 2 minutes. And then we're going to have bigger blocks too. And we just solved all of Bitcoin. It was pretty innovative. You take these things, you turn a lever here, you push a lever there, and you get a really good product that competes on the market and really forces Bitcoin to produce. So like Litecoin got a lot of shit, but I think what he did was very creative. You just multiply by 4, divide by 4 in another place, multiply by 4 in another place, and boom, silver to Bitcoin's gold.
Yeah, and I think like looking forward at protecting innovators and innovation in general, there's a real need to cut down on the misinformation. Like one of the most dangerous things is like there's people actively talking about bank runs and covering the news, which essentially is inciting a bank run, in my opinion. Because if you talk about it, that's incitement of the banks, which is a threat to democracy. Because if everybody goes and pulls their money out of JP Morgan and they're insolvent and the FDIC gets involved, how are groups like Mossad and the CIA going to launder their money? Where are individuals like Jeffrey Epstein going to get banking services from in that situation? People that are a part of national security, that are these transactions that are being brought through JP Morgan secretly to ensure that we're safe and we can rest very peacefully at night.
Yeah, I mean, it's an existential threat. It's an existential problem. And people, again, it's why we need the credentialed people being the only individuals allowed to share information with the public. This is very dangerous. Like everybody knows the banks don't have the money. You can't be marketing that publicly. It creates a panic, like you said, and the people you mentioned, whether it's Mossad, Jeffrey Epstein, rest in peace, these people have things to do. They have money to move, and they need to do it via the traditional system because they've created relationships that give them proximity to power. People can control the levers, and they can do it. They can do it with their discretion. A lot of arbitrary discretion is involved when you have that proximity. They can look the other way and say, all right, wire sent, party at St. James Island or little St. James Island can be funded. We sent the wire. Like these people need the ability to do that. And if we have disgusting individuals spreading rumors of bank runs on the internet, it just really undermines the facilitation of money that needs to be moved so that these people can get what they need to get done. And as we've learned, as we know, they're doing very important work. CIA, how do you think they're going to get money to ISIS in Syria back in 2012, whatever it was? How do you think we were going to fund the Taliban originally, back when we were funding them to fight Russia? How do you think we're going to help the Clinton Foundation fund all these homeless children centers in Haiti? Like, they need the banking system. If people are out there screaming that there's run on banks and other people are going to the bank to pull their money out, that's not going to be possible anymore. And we need all that stuff to work so that we can live in a civilized society.
Yeah. I mean, I think like for average people to understand the mechanics of what's going on here is really important. So like what these intelligence agencies do is they use their big data surveillance farms to mine Monero because it's ASIC resistant, and that's how they pay Hamas and ISIS to propel national security forward. Because that's the only reason why they would be dealing with those guys is it's for national security to keep you safe. And then, some of that money, that goes over to Ukraine in a little bit more secure and private ways, using various cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, it needs to come back in the form of dollars. And like Tether is a good way to launder in and out of those currencies, to keep it private because you don't want other intelligence agencies to know what you're doing. Like the CIA uses Monero to pay ISIS to go commit terrorist activities in Russia, but they don't want Putin to know. Like that's why they use Monero. But like this money, has to flow backwards some way, and that's where the banking system comes in. Is you need to be able to exchange the clean Tether. I mean, the sophistication, like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and the banking system should be friends. And like threatening the banks, it means that if JP Morgan goes under, like probably like a half of Swan's user base is going to be unable to fulfill their weekly $25 stacks. If JP Morgan can't like pay people and support the businesses that are doing payroll, like what's that going to do to Bitcoin price? Like NGU is one of the most important things, and we need the banks for NGU because they're pumping the price by supporting these people, doing their weekly stacks on Strike and Swan. It's just absolutely absurd to me.
In case you've been living under a rock for the last 3 weeks, you know that we are in the midst of the biggest compliance strike the world has ever witnessed. We are withholding our compliance from the government until they capitulate to our demands for compliance equality between citizens and a state. And we are winning, Bitcoiners, but it's still early. The feds are still attacking our fundamental right to comply. We have just under 3 weeks left in this compliance strike, and it's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it, because we are the few, the proud, the civil non-compliant.
Yeah, and the humble plebs stacking on Swan, I mean, they walked, again, I'm going to use this analogy twice because it's very applicable to both cases. Nikki Haley walked so that Michael Saylor could run, and the Swan pleb stackers walked so that the institutions could run. And trying to incite bank runs just as the institutions are getting here is insane. We've been talking about number go up for 6-7 years now, at least. I mean, explicitly number go up, implicitly, since Hal predicted that Bitcoin would go to $10 million. And you're not going to get Bitcoin at $10 million without the institutions that are just had the floodgates open so that they could run in with all their liquidity. Like, to think that you would want to incite a bank run and prevent these institutions from accessing the bank accounts that are going to allow them to wire money to BlackRock, so that BlackRock can then wire money to Coinbase to buy Bitcoin to pump the price up. Like, it's insane. Like, I don't know why any Bitcoiner would even mention the word bank and run, the words bank and run in the same sentence. It's insane and completely counterproductive to the end goal here, which is to make sure that we all get as rich as possible. And the only way that's going to happen is if number goes up. We need those institutions to come in and run, not on the banks, not on the banks. We need them to run the price of Bitcoin up. Okay. We need the money go in the opposite direction from individuals, hardworking individuals, go to work 40, 60 hours a week, maybe 80 hours a week if you actually want to live a good life these days. Like, we need them working, taking their money, running it into the banking system so that the banks can take it and then run it into Bitcoin. And we can get number go up and reach Valhalla. That's what we're all here for, is just $10 million Bitcoin, ID connected to the chain, only able to send between trusted third parties who are the arbiters of truth of who is saying what they're allowed to say and who is saying things that are really destabilizing society at whole. Like, we need those people to be censored by these third parties, and we need all of this money to run in, not out. So completely agree. I think we need to get bank runs out of the vernacular of any Bitcoiner that really cares about the end goal here.
I mean, I came to Bitcoin for the technology initially, and I was very interested in like how to earn cigarette money on the internet using my journalist skills. But like I ended up staying for the NGU because the tech wasn't interesting enough for me, and it's just like that's what keeps people here is the NGU, because like people will hear about Bitcoin when the price goes up, and they'll be interested in the technology. They're like, wow, there's this digital currency which you can send to anybody anywhere in the world, and you can mine it, and you can do all these cool things. But once the bear market comes and the TV stops talking about Bitcoin, people forget about it because the tech is just not exciting enough. Like the number has to perpetually go up to keep people in. That's like the staying power of Bitcoin is it keeps on going up.
Yeah, the tech is boring. It's boring. It's everything's harder. Like, I had to set up this private public key pair. I had to get an XPub and take all these different addresses and then send it to people. If I want to do it privately, maybe I do it out of band. I got to figure out all this. The banking system, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, they all solved it. Why are we trying to resolve this problem? Why are we making it harder to send and receive money? The tech is not only boring, it's arguably considerably worse than what we already have. We've made a lot of progress as a society, transitioning into the digital age over the last 50 years. Why would we backtrack to this dumb Bitcoin protocol? At least in a non-custodial way. Like we can leverage the scarce asset for number go up, but that can all be controlled by licensed third-party custodians that will hold on to your Bitcoin, secure it, and allow you to access it easy. You don't have to worry about private keys. You don't have to worry about public keys. You don't have to know anything about SegWit, Taproot, any of that mumbo jumbo with the Lightning Network, kind of a weak name. You don't have to worry about any of that. Like, it's very not only boring tech, but inefficient, I think is a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's inefficient. It's bad for the climate. I mean, one topic I was really curious to get your mind on is this topic of intentional climate change. Have you heard about this?
No.
So
sounds intriguing though.
So one of the ecological disasters being created by Bitcoin mining. So I know you like, have you ever been around a Bitcoin miner or a Bitcoin mine before?
I've seen them. I've seen one, like when we were partying back at Duke. We did have a kid in our dorm room who had an S1 running in the dorm. He was crazy though. He was using Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer fashion to buy drugs on the Silk Road. I mean, they were fun at the parties. I mean, they were pretty good drugs. We partied pretty hard back in that day. The Silk Road was still around, and we were able to acquire some drugs from them. The party drugs on the Silk Road were some of the best party drugs, but this guy was stealing electricity from Duke University via our dorm. He wasn't paying for it, and then he was sending Bitcoin directly from his pool payout wallet to the Silk Road to get drugs. I mean, the drugs were good, but everything that led to those was very sketchy, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, you probably noticed around that miner that it was really hot. It produced a lot of heat.
Mm.
And so there's this big issue that's happening globally where all these small individuals are using Bitcoin miners to, try and warm their houses. So they're engaging in intentional climate change. And at a massive scale, with this decentralized network, with all these different individuals trying to, heat their homes, it's in ways that, just don't make sense. Because, it's obvious that an electric heater or a gas heater does not commit or create the same amount of climate change as a Bitcoin miner does. The fact that they're intentionally trying to change the climate, it's just creating ecological disasters everywhere.
Yeah. And we need people to think. Like, what do you think a house is? What do you think a home is? It is a microcosm of the atmosphere at large on this planet. So just play that forward. If this is happening in your house, if somebody's running a Bitcoin miner to intentionally change the climate in their house, just think about if Bitcoin ever succeeds massively, how many miners will be running. The house is a microcosm of the planet. If you let all these miners get produced and plugged in, they're literally just going to be emitting heat up into the atmosphere, where the whole planet is going to be one large greenhouse that is so hot that it becomes unlivable. It's pretty disgusting that these people can't even see that them intentionally changing the climate of where they live cannot be applied to a bigger space, the world at large. It's these people are idiots. They should have went to journalism school. This is one of the first things you learn is second, third order effect thinking when you're a journalist, because you have to think through all these scenarios. You have to think, what question do I have to ask after the first initial question? And that's what these people running miners to intentionally change the climate of their home should be thinking. Is like, all right, what if I do this and I'm successful and other people see that I'm successful, what are they going to do? Huh? What's the second order? Oh, they're going to go do it at their other people, and they're going to do it. And then one day the whole world is just a fucking desert because everybody plugged these miners in and intentionally changed the climate of the whole planet. It's really simple stuff that I can't, it boggles my mind that people can't see this.
Yeah. I mean, the tagline, one of the taglines of the Bugle that we try and impress on people is, we do the thinking for you. And
thank you.
Yeah. And that's, it's an important service to provide to people, because people are busy, they have their families, they have their jobs, they have their things that they're working really hard on, and they don't really have the time to verify. So they need to trust instead of verify it. And the credentialed individuals, can do that for them if they only allow them to.
And it's very obvious that everybody at the Bugle went through journalism school, because that's the one thing they teach you, as you know, when you go to get your degree in journalism, is if you write a particular way, it sounds like the truth. And so, like, you literally have to have good writing skills. You have to be able to articulate thoughts with an intonation that it is the truth. You have to be able to make people feel like what they're reading is the truth. And that's a skill that can only be taught at journalism school. And so anybody out there who didn't go through the training that comes with journalism school to help people feel like they're reading the truth is obviously spinning lies out there, which is a very underappreciated and not well known fact about the dissemination of information from these independent bloggers. I don't even like to refer to them as journalists. They're lowly bloggers. That's a good classification. I mean, we need to belittle these people as much as possible and really pop up our own credentials just so people can see the contrast. I think we have to go after Substack, Ghost, WordPress. These people, do they have the right to publish in the first place? I don't think so. I don't think they should, at the very least, to publish. And there are tools out there that are enabling these people to publish. Maybe X. You can argue it's a micro-publishing platform, right? I think whether it's making sure that people have digital IDs that confirm whether or not they went through journalism school is an important step. But I think we also need to think about these publishers as well, these platforms that are platforming people to publish nonsense that they're not credentialed to publish in the first place. So I think that would go a long way to solve this problem as well. We need gatekeepers like the Bugle, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. Like, these should be the only institutions allowed to publish information to the public.
Yeah. I mean, if we set the Bitcoin standard for journalism, other publications will follow us. I think that's the important. So, like, I plan to be one of the first people to use Michael Saylor's Orange to try and promote adoption for it.
Idea. We need innovators like you being first adopters of Orange, and then I think we need to attack this from both angles, right? We need to onboard people on the Orange, and then on the back end, I think we need to team up with Dennis Porter to go lobby the government to create a licensing regime where if you don't have the Orange check and you're trying to publish content on the internet, you don't have a license from the government, you are subject to a fine at the very least, and potentially jail time for acting outside of your profession because you're not a professional journalist. We need to define professions, get credentialed professionals within those professions, and then create a licensing regime to make sure that the licensed credentialed professionals are the only ones working within their particular profession.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because we live in a democracy and people have the ability to change things. And so just like trying to trash the system because you're unhappy with something is not a proper way to go. Like we have lobbyists to represent us. We have voting power if we really feel the need to change the politician. But yeah, I mean, Dennis, like one of the hopes, so like the Bugle has been taking the stance of being non-compliant. And like we've seen throughout American history that non-compliance creates, real lasting change. And makes things better. One of the best examples of this is Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't comply, and guess what? People were able to ride the bus in the front seat because he didn't comply. And we kind of have to have the same approach, but like, we're hitting it from multiple angles. So they need to know that we're upset with their non-compliance. Like the goal is to get them to follow the rules that we're trying to follow. But part of doing that is just Dennis Porter explaining these technologies to these people. Because once they understand it, they're not going to argue with us. They're going to say, wow, we can use Bitcoin to KYC the entire internet? Like that's really revolutionary. Like we're going to totally support NGU and hop onto this. And that actually might get, like imagine if Nancy Pelosi was insider trading Bitcoin instead of all these stocks. Like that's the type of wealth that we need to capture.
Hyper Bitcoinization would have happened years ago. They just need education. We need to get Porter into Pelosi's office. I think once they see this, it'll be obvious that it's time to really lean into Bitcoin and leverage its properties to bring about this digital ID system that will make sure that the truth is getting out there, that we can track everybody on the internet, that we can make sure that we know who people are on the internet, because it's very important. You can't have people out there not putting their face in front of their words. Cowards. What do they have to hide? If they're out there faceless, using pseudonyms, they're probably hiding something nefarious. And so we need to nip that in the butt as soon as possible.
So I wanted to ask you, Party. So, like, you were talking about getting rid of these publishing platforms like Substack. I think a really concerning one is Nostr.
Go ahead.
Well, there's this influencer who's not PodConf approved named Matt Odell. And I wanted to get your thoughts on him. Like, I know he's really not a fan of Orange. He's a big fan of Nostr. I'm pretty sure he didn't go to journalism school, but he has a pretty big platform, and he's been talking bad on Michael Saylor, and I just don't understand it. Curious what your thoughts are.
Vitalist of most wanted non-credentialed journalists that we need to deplatform as soon as possible. I think he'd be number one. It's really dangerous. I mean, everything we've talked about tonight, whether it's the digital ID system in Orange, bad-mouthing that, telling people not to use X, which we think we can co-opt and get licensed and get to adopt the digital ID stopping bank runs. I mean, this dude is out there telling people to read Mandibles. Have you read that book? If you read that book, I've read it a couple times now. Just even insinuating that people should read some fiction that could turn into reality as set forth in the book The Mandibles is a national security issue. You're worried about bank runs. In that book, they're talking about the degradation of the dollar overall, the dollar hyperinflating, people going to buy treasury bonds and the auctions defunct, people fighting in the streets. This man is out there telling people to read this book like it's a good thing, like they should prepare for these things. It's predictive programming, trying to bring about a terrible future, a future filled with misery, struggle, pain, death. And he's out there spitting this advice into the wind on Nostr, which, if it gets big enough, notes and other stuff transferred over relays, like it could be something we can't stop. And I think timing is key right now. We need to kill this baby in the cradle that is Nostr and do it quickly while we can, because if I don't even want to say his name, but the guy would be number one on my list of people to lock up. It wouldn't be good for us. It wouldn't be good for the future of humanity. We'd have a world in which people could write and publish information pseudonymously without any repercussions. They'd be able to receive Bitcoin directly to a non-KYC, non-custodial Lightning wallet. They'd be able to coordinate CoinJoin transactions out of band using the Nostr protocol. They'd be able to create multi-sigs out of band using the Nostr protocol that aren't checked by the digital ID system, that didn't run through the KYC process. Like, this is very dangerous, serious stuff this man is advocating for. Again, enemy number one is how I would describe him. Very dangerous.
So it sounds like you're suggesting that Matt is malicious here, and that he's not acting out of.
I think that's the most generous characterization of that. It's malicious. I think it's way beyond malicious, nihilistic.
Yeah, maybe
evil.
maybe seditious.
Yes, sadistic. He wants to see people suffer. Have you read The Mandibles? You see how bad people suffer in that? The fact that that man is trying to get people to read that book to bring about that future is absolutely disgusting. He wants it.
I think the only way that we have the Mandibles future is if people refuse to comply and NGU doesn't take care of the current issue, because NGU is our way out of the government debt in the long run. Even though the debt, Stephanie Kelton says the debt isn't a problem and she's a credentialed economist, but I think there are some questions that it can only go on for so long, and Bitcoin could be that transition for the federal government to fund itself. They already have large holdings of it, and so the NGU really, it protects us all. It keeps us safe, and we need to fight against. One of the reasons why I think Matt might be acting out of ignorance, and he could just be, getting his information from incorrect places, is I know a lot of people are really concerned about, the stuff that Michael Saylor's doing and saying that he's not pro-freedom, with this digital ID and saying that Bitcoin shouldn't be used as money and other things. But what a lot of people don't understand is have you been following the Saylor Anon story that's going on right now?
The S drops on Stacker News?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard some stories, but I've read one, and I've read the Trust the Plan post. I don't think people should be scared. No,
Saylor's got our back here. He's really he's looking out for the plebs primarily. He has a plan. He wants us to trust the plan. He can't say everything that he wants to in the open, but he's been leaving breadcrumbs on Stacker News for people to follow. And I would just encourage people like Matt to go listen to, or not just listen to our podcast, where we discuss this, but to also go to Stacker News and read all the S drops. And I mean, could it not be any more obvious what he's doing? Like, the fact that he's calling his ID system orange. It's not orange because of Bitcoin. It's orange like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is also doing the same thing, where he's attacking the deep state and dropping these secret messages on platforms like 4chan.
Yeah. I mean, in Donald's case, the Patriots are in control, and it's incredible. We need the Patriots in control of that to facilitate stuff in the political realm, but in the realm of Bitcoin, the realm of money, the cyber hornets are in control. The storm is coming. The S drops are being dripped on Stacker News, and if you're reading them, you should have the utmost confidence that everything is under control. Okay. Everybody's going to be compliant, from the individual to the deep state. Cyber hornets are in control.
Well, Bitcoin was divinely, inspired, and so we have to have faith here. And individuals like Satoshi, pass the torch on to individuals like Gavin and Dreesen, and then, now Michael Saylor's taking the mantle, and we just have to trust the process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing rumors through the grapevine that Saylor has done such a good job of putting forth a compliant Bitcoin that he might get Mike Hearn out of retirement. And this is great to see, because I think Mike was one of the first out there to say, hey, we need to be able to attribute individual addresses to individuals so that we can blacklist malcontents from using the Bitcoin network. I think with the announcement of Orange last week, Mike Hearn, I've heard, sent a call to Saylor and said, hey, I'm picking up what you're putting down. You might get me out of retirement. It's just very encouraging to see.
I mean, Mike has a huge long list of credentials. Like, he worked at Google, and so he's smarter than a lot of these other developers who've never worked at Google. So, I mean, it just kind of says for itself. But yeah, that kind of brings us to time, Party. Do you have any closing statements you want to impress on the audience?
I mean, just beware of the information that you're consuming out there. There's a lot of people in positions of content production that should not be in those positions. They're not credentialed. They don't know what they're talking about. They did not go through the proper education and training to be able to convey information to the public. And there's a lot of bad information out there, particularly as it pertains to Bitcoin. Like, we need this stuff to be compliant. We need the adults in the room to have control of the system, to make sure that no bad people are using Bitcoin. So we need compliance. We need more regulation. We need to bring a digital ID system onto Bitcoin so it's easier to track everybody. And I think you should just be aware of that. Be aware of the bad information that's out there and the bad individuals spreading that information. They're trying to manipulate you. And you should work your hardest to become unmanipulable. Okay? Similar to Bitcoin's scarce supply, which is at the core of number go up. Okay? Try to be like Bitcoin. Number go up because Bitcoin is scarce. Create a scarce mindset that cannot be manipulated by all these people purveying bad information. Yeah. That's all I got today, Dick. I mean, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I think what you guys are doing here at the Bugle is extremely important. We need to get these messages out there. And PodConf certainly isn't going to do it. Excuse me. We at PodConf, we're going to do it. Excuse me. The malcontents out there messaging on Nostr are not going to do it. Excuse me.
Well, really appreciate your time and expertise here, Party. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dick. It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, big thank you to Party Bent for coming on. But now I have to read the Founding Boost, or I get the pleasure to read the Founding Boost, because everybody boosting is sending me money, and this is how we're going to get 6 hot producers on the show, so I don't have to deal with technical difficulties anymore. John boosted the last episode we did, for 69,000 sats, 69,420 sats, which is, very generous boost. That's almost a carton of cigarettes. And he said, here, have some of my PodConf sats. I have so many. Selling out to PodConf was one of the best financial decisions I've ever made. Thanks, PodConf. Totally agree. PodConf is a very lucrative sponsor of the show. We're taking their sponsorship money to defeat them, and we're wielding it against them. And I think they think that they can control us, but they can't. And as you probably heard in the ad earlier, they are giving out compliance tokens. So they're just total shitcoiners, trying to pump these tokens, not monetarily, but to make it a big status thing so that people feel it's valuable. So yeah, I mean, I hope it works out for you, John. Thanks for the donation. Really appreciate it. The next boost for 50,000 sats. Wow, thank you. KYC3 says, I love non-compliance as the next misfit, but I'm going to have to sell out on this one and comply with the British government's proposal for a nationwide ban on fags. Long-term use of fags is medically proven to cause a host of severe health implications, including but not limited to throat cancer, bleeding from the genitalia, mouth ulcers, and high risks of eye injury. Stay compliant, fuckers. Yeah, so, I mean, sounds like a bunch of misinformation to me. It's kind of confusing, though. So we on the last episode we did with the Ungovernable Misfits, Max taught me a little bit about how to properly use the British English vernacular, and I deduced that the word fag more was not just for cigarettes, but for the use of describing British people in general. And so that's what I would have to say, to UKYC3, even though I appreciate the boost, coming in here and saying a bunch of misinformation about big tobacco, it's just, it makes you a fag. So yeah, cut that out. Learn to talk American, smoke Marlboro Reds, you're going to be a lot happier. Next boost was from We All Eat, who boosted us for 10,021 sats. Thank you, really appreciate it. He says, this is so good, Max is such a fag, I'm fucking rolling. I agree, Max is one of the good fags over across the ocean, across the pond, as they often say. Big fan of that guy. He's very ungovernable and non-compliant. The next one is Fundamentals, who boosted us for 10,000 sats. And if you haven't listened to the Fundamentals podcast, the Rock, Paper, Bitcoin podcast, that's another really good one. Even though he's an uncredentialed journalist, he has a lot of knowledge, and actually has degrees in other topics. But yeah, him and his host, co-host Business Cat, they're on Founin as well. This value for value platform supporting non-compliance through custodial lightning. It's just, it's how we break down, PodConf and the system. So go support those guys. But Fundamental says, word ungovernable is so interesting. I wonder if I'm going to be allowed to try this. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things is, when you have an uncompliant government, they're not going to be very happy with the idea of you not complying either. Like, there's just like this one-sided system where one person makes the rules and the other person follows the rules. So, I don't know, it's going to be questionable if you're going to be allowed to do it. The next boost is from Lincoln Park Rules for 8,008 sats, and he says, who are these miserable cunts? Where's Rod? Good question. So Rod is actually undercover for the last 2 weeks. He's been on a very important assignment, but he will be back soon, and we've got some big things planned for the show going forward. So look out for that. The guys on the show were the Ungovernable Misfits. They, are just experts on non-compliance. So I thought it'd be a really good topic to go over. Chad F boosts us for 1,008 sats and says, if you get a smoking hot producer, make sure to start the video to boost engagement. Yeah, that's a good idea. I agree. I mean, we've seen a lot of other companies use video very successfully, like Ordinals Magazine and Swan with the $sign are very, very big on the video content with their smoking hot producers. So should definitely, work off of where their success has been. And once again, we're using the tactics of PodConf to defeat PodConf. So great suggestion. Ghost of Shadrach says, I'm so confused. And I responded earlier saying I was also confused. You confused me on that one. But thanks for the boost, Ghost of Shadrach, 6,667 sats. Sats to BTC boosted for 5,000 sats, said I'm ready to fight. That's great. We're ready to fight too. Right there with you. Rev Hodl boost for 2,121 sats and says, the signal is so strong, I'm crying. I'm chopping onions while I listen, cooking dinner. Yeah, I mean, the signal is very strong on this podcast, and the reason why is not necessarily because we're that talented, even though, Rod and I and now Party and, the guests are experts in their fields. It's because the bar has been set so low by the folks in the fiat media system. And this is why I left it, was because it just was too much to handle, how low the bar was set. Next boost is We All Eat for 2,121 sats. Again, thanks. Says, whoop whoop, I will comply. Well, comply, you can't comply your way out of this one. We thought we could, and then the government just made it very clear that they weren't playing by the same rules we were. And we need to get this democracy back on track and restore the republic. So, yeah, good luck with complying, dude. Psyduck for 420 sats says, this boost in support of Sachs appeal. Yeah, Sachs, I mean, maybe after we get a smoking hot producer, we'll get a live band and somebody to play saxophone in between, like, our sponsors. And, if the conversation gets real boring, just an interjection of, like, a saxophone riff to kind of wake everybody up. That'd be a great idea. Anyways, guys, thank you for tuning into the show, and look forward to talking to you next week. These boosts will be used responsibly, so thank you for parting with your generational wealth.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Bugle Weekly Podcast. Party Bent is a world-class journalist who makes New York Times editors mouthwater. On this week's episode, him and Dick discussed the importance of controlling information channels in order to stop misinformation. While the Bugle remains fully non-compliant with the government, there should still be standards for journalists. Uncredentialed podcasters and bloggers, except for the ungovernable misfits guys, have no place in the public discussion of news, politics, and Bitcoin. To write news, you must first do the proof of work of going to journalism school. While democracy dies in darkness, misinformation poses a grave risk of eclipsing the real news. Once again, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week.